The night was alive with energy as the neon lights of Club Aura glowed against the evening sky. People lined up outside, dressed to impress, eager to experience one of the city's most exclusive spots. Among them was Maya Roberts, who stood out not because of her attire but because of her calm demeanor. While most patrons were adorned in designer labels, Maya opted for a simple black dress and flats, an outfit that screamed practicality over pretension. She wasn't there to impress anyone, she was there for a purpose. Maya had built her nightclub empire from scratch, starting with a single rundown venue in a less-than-glamorous neighborhood. Over the years, she transformed it into a thriving chain, known for its electric atmosphere and inclusive culture. Club Aura was one of her crown jewels, a hotspot that had attracted celebrities, socialites, and locals alike. But tonight, she was there unannounced, curious to see if the club was living up to the standards she had painstakingly established. As she approached the entrance, the bouncer barely glanced at her. "Guest list only," he said dismissively, eyeing the line of flashy attendees behind her. Maya politely explained she wasn't on the list but would like to speak with the manager. Her calm tone didn't sit well with the bouncer, who gave her a condescending smirk. "Lady, this isn't some hole-in-the-wall bar. If you're not on the list, you're not getting in." Maya didn't argue. She knew this wasn't the moment to reveal her identity. Instead, she stepped aside, observing as the line moved. People were waved in with little scrutiny, most of them young, wealthy, and exuding a certain air of entitlement. A few others, who didn't quite fit the mold, were turned away with the same indifference she had just experienced. It was disheartening but not entirely surprising. She had heard whispers of favoritism and discriminatory practices at some of her venues, but this was the first time she was witnessing it firsthand. After a while, Maya decided to try a different approach. She walked up to the second entrance, reserved for VIPs. There, she encountered Jordan Blake, the club's manager. Jordan was everything Maya detested in a leader: arrogant, dismissive, and more concerned with appearances than substance. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his hair slicked back, exuding an aura of authority he seemed desperate to cling to. Jordan looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on her modest attire. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. Maya introduced herself simply as a customer hoping to enjoy the club's VIP experience. Jordan chuckled, a sound that was both insulting and dismissive. "The VIP area is exclusive," he said, emphasizing the last word as if it were a foreign concept to her. "We reserve it for our high-profile guests." Maya smiled politely. "I understand. I just thought I'd see what the fuss was about." Jordan didn't bother hiding his irritation. "Look, ma'am, this isn't the place for you. Maybe try somewhere more casual." He gestured vaguely toward the street, where dive bars and casual eateries lined the block. The insult was clear. Still, Maya kept her composure. She thanked him and stepped away, her mind racing. As much as she wanted to confront him then and there, she knew she needed to see more. Instead of leaving, she found a quiet corner outside the club and struck up a conversation with Alex Perez, a bartender on his break. Alex was young, earnest, and eager to share his thoughts about working at Club Aura. He mentioned how the staff felt undervalued, how favoritism ran rampant, and how Jordan often treated employees and patrons with disdain. "Honestly," Alex said, taking a drag from his cigarette, "it's a great place if you're rich or famous. But for the rest of us? It's just a paycheck. And for the customers who don't fit the VIP look? They're pretty much invisible." Maya listened intently, her resolve strengthening with every word. It wasn't just about her experience tonight, it was about the culture Jordan had fostered under her nose. She thanked Alex for his honesty and decided it was time to see the club from the inside. Using a separate, unmarked entrance she had authorized for staff emergencies, Maya entered the club without attracting attention. The atmosphere inside was as vibrant as ever, with pulsating music, dazzling lights, and a crowd that seemed to be having the time of their lives. But as she moved through the space, the cracks in the facade became evident. The VIP area, roped off and guarded by another bouncer, was filled with people who looked eerily similar, young, wealthy, and overwhelmingly white. Meanwhile, the main floor was a mix of patrons, many of whom seemed to be treated as second-class citizens by the staff. Maya's heart sank as she observed the disparity. This wasn't the vision she had for her clubs. She approached the bar, where Alex was now working, and ordered a drink. "What would you change about this place if you could?" she asked him casually. Alex hesitated, then said, honestly, "I'd get rid of Jordan. He's all about image. He doesn't care about the people, just the profit." Maya nodded, her decision made. But she wasn't ready to act just yet. She needed to see how far Jordan's arrogance would go. Her moment came when she attempted to enter the VIP area again, this time slipping past the bouncer while he was distracted. She made it as far as the velvet ropes before Jordan appeared, his face a mask of annoyance. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. "I just wanted to see what makes this area so special," Maya said, her tone light but her eyes sharp. Jordan's voice rose, loud enough to draw the attention of nearby patrons. "You don't belong here. I don't know how many times I have to say it." The crowd began to murmur, some watching with amusement, others with discomfort. Maya met Jordan's gaze, her expression calm but unyielding. "Are you sure about that?" she asked quietly. Jordan scoffed. "Listen, lady. This is my club, and I decide who gets in. And you? You're not it." The room fell silent as Maya took a step closer, her voice steady and firm. "Actually, Jordan, this isn't your club. It's mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd as realization dawned. Jordan's face turned a shade of red that bordered on comical, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. What are you talking about?" he stammered. Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling to a document with the club's ownership details. She handed it to him without a word. The bouncer, the staff, even the patrons leaned in, their curiosity palpable. Jordan scanned the document, his hands trembling as the truth hit him like a freight train. This can't be real," he whispered. Maya's smile was faint but full of steel. "Oh, it's very real. And now, we're going to have a little talk about how things are run around here." The room erupted into whispers and shocked exclamations as Maya turned to address the crowd, her voice rising above the noise. "For anyone who's ever been made to feel like they didn't belong, I want you to know, this stops now. My clubs are meant to be a place where everyone feels welcome, and that's exactly what they'll be from now on." The reaction was immediate. Some patrons cheered, others looked embarrassed. The staff, particularly Alex, exchanged hopeful glances. As for Jordan, he stood frozen, his authority stripped away in an instant. Maya knew this was just the beginning. The hard part, fixing what had been broken, was still ahead. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She had stood up not just for herself but for everyone who had been made to feel less than. And in that moment, she was reminded of why she had started this journey in the first place. Maya sat at her desk the next morning, the sunlight filtering through her office window as she reviewed the events of the previous night. The confrontation with Jordan had been a turning point, but it was only the tip of the iceberg. She knew the problem went far deeper than one arrogant manager. As she sipped her coffee, her thoughts drifted back to her early days in the business, to the nights she had spent working behind the bar, cleaning floors, and learning every detail of what it took to run a nightclub. Back then, inclusivity wasn't just a buzzword, it was her mission. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, Maya had witnessed firsthand how people were often judged by their appearance, background, or the color of their skin. It wasn't just unfair, it was dehumanizing. When she opened her first club, it had been a sanctuary for those who didn't fit the mold of traditional nightlife. She wanted her spaces to be vibrant, diverse, and welcoming, a stark contrast to the exclusive and elitist culture that dominated the industry. Somewhere along the way, that vision had been diluted. As her empire grew, she had to delegate responsibilities, trusting managers like Jordan to uphold her values. But the events at Club Aura made it clear that trust had been misplaced. The culture she had fought so hard to build was slipping away, and if she didn't act now, it might be lost forever. Determined to set things right, Maya called an emergency meeting with her regional managers. They gathered in the sleek conference room of her corporate headquarters, a space that mirrored the elegance of her clubs but with a more serious atmosphere. As the managers settled into their seats, Maya scanned their faces. Some looked curious, others concerned. Jordan's absence was noticeable. He had been suspended pending an internal review, and word of the previous night's events had already begun to circulate. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Maya began, her tone calm but resolute. I'm sure many of you have heard about what happened at Club Aura last night. Let me make one thing clear, what I witnessed was unacceptable, and it's not just about one person or one incident. It's about a culture that has no place in my organization. The room fell silent as Maya recounted her experience, sparing no details about the discrimination, favoritism, and toxic leadership she had observed. She didn't mince words, and by the time she finished, the gravity of the situation was palpable. One of the managers, a middle-aged woman named Carla, was the first to speak. "Maya, I think we all share your concerns. But this isn't just about Club Aura. These issues exist in other locations too. They're subtle, but they're there." Maya nodded. "That's exactly why we're here. We need to address these issues head-on, not just at Club Aura but across the board. From this moment forward, things are going to change." Over the next 2 hours, they developed a comprehensive plan to overhaul the organization's policies and practices. This included mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff, stricter accountability measures for managers, and the creation of an anonymous feedback system for employees and patrons. But Maya didn't stop there. She also proposed a mentorship program to promote underrepresented groups within the company, ensuring that the leadership pipeline reflected the diversity of their clientele. As the meeting adjourned, the managers left with a renewed sense of purpose. But for Maya, the real work was just beginning. She knew that policies and programs were only part of the solution. Changing a culture required more than rules, it required leadership by example. Later that week, Maya returned to Club Aura, this time in a more official capacity. She had arranged a staff meeting to address the team directly. As she entered the room, the employees fell silent, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Alex was there, standing near the back with a few other bartenders. He gave her a small nod of encouragement, which she appreciated more than he could know. Maya took a deep breath before speaking. "Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication. I know the nightlife industry isn't easy, and I appreciate everything you do to make this club a success. But I also know that success isn't just about profits or popularity. It's about the experience we create for our patrons and the culture we foster as a team." She paused, letting her words sink in. "What I saw last week was deeply disappointing. Not because of the way I was treated personally, but because it goes against everything this company stands for. Discrimination, favoritism, and disrespect have no place here. And moving forward, we're going to ensure that's not just a slogan, it's a reality." Maya outlined the changes that were coming, emphasizing the importance of accountability and inclusion. She invited the staff to share their thoughts and experiences, promising a safe and supportive environment for open dialogue. At first, there was hesitation, but gradually, hands began to rise. A waitress named Nina spoke about how she often felt overlooked by Jordan, who seemed to prioritize the opinions of male staff members. A security guard mentioned the unspoken pressure to enforce unwritten rules about who was allowed into the VIP area. Even Alex, who had been one of the few to treat Maya with kindness, admitted that he sometimes felt powerless to challenge the status quo. Listening to their stories, Maya felt a surge of both anger and determination. These were good people, hardworking, loyal, and passionate about their jobs. They deserved better, and she was determined to give it to them. As the meeting ended, Maya stayed behind to speak with Alex. "Thank you for being honest with me," she said. "Your courage inspired others to speak up, and that's how change begins." Alex smiled, his usual easygoing demeanor tinged with emotion. "Honestly, I was just doing what felt right. But it means a lot coming from you." Maya left the club that night with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, change never was, but she was ready to face it head-on. For her, this wasn't just about fixing a broken system, it was about honoring the vision that had brought her here in the first place. And as she drove home, the city lights reflecting in her rearview mirror, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. What Maya didn't realize was that her decision to take a stand was already sending ripples through the community. Patrons who had witnessed her confrontation with Jordan were sharing the story, sparking conversations about fairness, inclusion, and the power of standing up for what's right. Maya's fight was just beginning, but it was clear that she wasn't fighting alone. Word about Maya's stand against discrimination spread quickly through the city, fueled by social media posts, whispered conversations, and the curiosity of a community hungry for a story of justice. People who had felt marginalized or overlooked in other nightlife venues began flocking to Club Aura, intrigued by the idea that a place could exist where everyone was truly welcome. Meanwhile, Maya doubled down on her commitment to creating lasting change, knowing that a single gesture wasn't enough to dismantle years of ingrained attitudes and practices. The first major hurdle came just a week after Maya's public confrontation with Jordan. A small but vocal group of regular VIP patrons expressed their discontent, arguing that the new policies threatened to dilute the exclusivity that had made the club a status symbol. One particularly influential guest, a tech entrepreneur named Evan Blake, even went so far as to post a scathing online review, claiming the club's atmosphere had been ruined by unnecessary changes. Maya read the review with a mix of frustration and determination. She recognized Evan's name. He had been a frequent guest in the VIP section, known for his lavish spending and equally lavish ego. But his words didn't discourage her, they strengthened her resolve. Instead of ignoring the criticism, she decided to address it head-on. Using the club's social media platform, Maya posted a video response. Standing in the heart of Club Aura, she spoke directly to the camera, her voice steady and her gaze unwavering. "To our patrons, both new and old, I want to address some concerns that have been brought to my attention," she began. "I understand that change can be uncomfortable, especially when it challenges the status quo. But I also believe that true exclusivity isn't about shutting people out, it's about creating a space where everyone feels they belong. That's the vision I had when I started this journey, and it's a vision I refuse to compromise." The video went viral within hours, garnering thousands of views and sparking a heated debate in the comments section. Some praised Maya for her courage and integrity, while others accused her of pandering to political correctness. Through it all, Maya remained unshaken, confident that she was on the right path. But change wasn't just happening online. At Club Aura, the new policies were already taking effect. The anonymous feedback system quickly became a powerful tool, giving employees and patrons a platform to voice their experiences. Maya read every submission personally, often staying late into the night to ensure no concern went unnoticed. One submission, in particular, caught her attention. It was from a young woman named Amara, a frequent clubgoer who described an incident from a few months earlier. Amara had been denied entry to the VIP section despite having a valid reservation, with the staff citing a miscommunication that she believed was a thinly veiled excuse for racial bias. Maya invited Amara to meet her at the club, wanting to hear her story firsthand. When they sat down in one of the quieter lounges, Amara was initially hesitant, unsure of what to expect. But Maya's genuine interest and empathy quickly put her at ease. "I'm not looking for an apology," Amara said, her voice tinged with both frustration and hope. "I just want to know that things are going to be different, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever felt unwelcome here." "They will be," Maya promised. "Not just here, but across every one of my clubs. I can't change the past, but I can make sure the future is better." As their conversation continued, Amara shared ideas for making the club more inclusive, from diversifying the music lineup to hosting events that celebrated different cultures. Maya took notes, inspired by Amara's passion and insight. By the time they parted ways, she felt more determined than ever to transform not just Club Aura but her entire brand. Meanwhile, the staff at Club Aura were undergoing their own transformation. The new training programs were met with initial skepticism, but as employees began to understand the importance of inclusion and empathy, attitudes began to shift. Alex, who had been one of the first to speak out against Jordan's leadership, emerged as a natural leader, helping his colleagues navigate the changes with patience and humor. One evening, as Maya observed the club from a discreet corner, she noticed something remarkable. A diverse group of patrons filled the dance floor, their energy and joy creating a palpable sense of unity. The VIP section, once a symbol of division, had become a more welcoming space, its ropes no longer a barrier but a bridge. Even the staff seemed lighter, their interactions marked by genuine smiles and mutual respect. But the road was far from smooth. One night, a conflict erupted between a group of longtime VIP patrons and some new guests who had been invited to the section. The argument quickly escalated, with accusations flying on both sides. Maya, who happened to be on site, intervened before the situation could spiral further. "Everyone, take a breath," she said, her voice firm but calm. "This is not how we treat each other here." She listened as both sides aired their grievances, then proposed a solution that emphasized communication and mutual understanding. By the end of the night, the tension had dissipated, replaced by a tentative but genuine sense of camaraderie. The incident reinforced Maya's belief that change wasn't just about policies or training, it was about fostering a culture of respect and accountability. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she also knew she wasn't alone. Her staff, her patrons, and her community were all part of the journey, and together, they were creating something extraordinary. As Maya left the club that night, the city skyline stretching before her, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. The work was hard, and the path was often uncertain, but moments like these reminded her why she had started. Club Aura wasn't just a nightclub, it was a reflection of her values, a space where people could come together, celebrate their differences, and find common ground. And as Maya drove home, her mind buzzed with ideas for the future. She wasn't just rebuilding a brand, she was redefining what it meant to belong. The weeks following Maya's public stance and implementation of her new policies were a whirlwind of transformation, challenges, and unexpected victories. Club Aura became the talk of the city, and not just for its innovative changes, it was becoming a symbol of progress in an industry notorious for its superficiality and exclusivity. Maya, however, understood that public interest and approval were fleeting. The real test would be creating a lasting impact that extended beyond her clubs. One of the first major initiatives Maya launched was a citywide campaign called Open Doors, Open Hearts. Partnering with local artists, activists, and community leaders, the campaign aimed to challenge stereotypes and encourage inclusivity in nightlife and beyond. It wasn't just a marketing ploy, it was a movement. Events were held across the city, ranging from spoken word performances to panel discussions about representation and equity. Maya often attended these events in person, listening to stories from people who had felt excluded or unseen in social spaces. One story, in particular, stayed with her, a young man named Khalid who described his first experience at a nightclub. "I was so excited to celebrate my birthday," Khalid shared during a community event. "But when I got to the door, the bouncer took one look at me and said the party was full. Meanwhile, I saw groups of other people getting in without a problem. It made me feel like I didn't belong, not just in that club, but in spaces like that altogether." Maya felt a pang of anger and sadness as Khalid spoke. His experience mirrored countless others she had heard since the incident at Club Aura. It was a stark reminder of the systemic issues she was up against, and it fueled her determination to make a difference. Back at Club Aura, the changes she had implemented were beginning to take root. Employees who had once been indifferent, or even resistant, to the new policies were starting to embrace them. The mentorship program, in particular, was proving to be a game-changer. Junior staff members, many of whom had never imagined themselves in leadership roles, were being paired with seasoned managers who supported their growth and development. One of the most promising ments was a young bartender named Tasha. She had started at Club Aura just a few months before Maya's intervention, and while she was talented and hardworking, she often kept to herself, avoiding the spotlight. Her mentor, Carla, one of Maya's most trusted regional managers, quickly saw Tasha's potential and began encouraging her to take on more responsibilities. "Tasha, you have a gift," Carla said during one of their mentorship sessions. "You're not just mixing drinks, you're creating experiences for people. That's leadership. Don't be afraid to step into it." Under Carla's guidance, Tasha began to flourish. She started training new hires, suggesting improvements to the bar's workflow, and even introducing creative drink concepts that quickly became customer favorites. Maya took notice and invited Tasha to join a roundtable discussion with other rising stars from her clubs. During the discussion, Tasha shared her journey with quiet confidence. "I used to think people like me didn't belong in places like this," she admitted. "But now I see that belonging isn't about fitting into someone else's idea of who you should be. It's about knowing your worth and owning your space." Maya felt a swell of pride as she listened. Tasha's words captured the essence of what she had been fighting for, a shift from exclusion to empowerment, from division to unity. But not everyone was on board with the changes. A small but vocal group of employees and patrons continued to resist, claiming that Maya's initiatives were going too far and alienating the club's original clientele. Some even began spreading rumors, accusing Maya of prioritizing her personal agenda over the club's profitability. One particularly difficult confrontation came during a staff meeting at another of Maya's clubs. A senior manager named Eric, who had been with the company since its early days, openly challenged her. "With all due respect, Maya," he said, his tone bordering on condescension, "I think we're losing sight of what made these clubs successful in the first place. People come here to feel exclusive, not to be part of some social experiment." The room fell silent as everyone turned to Maya, waiting to see how she would respond. She took a moment to collect her thoughts before speaking, her voice calm but firm. "Eric, I understand your perspective," she began. "But I need you to understand mine. Success isn't just about numbers or exclusivity, it's about values. If we're not creating spaces where everyone feels respected and valued, then we're failing, no matter how much money we're making." She paused, looking around the room. "This isn't a social experiment. It's a commitment to doing better, not just as a business, but as human beings. If that's something you can't get behind, then maybe this isn't the right place for you." Eric's expression hardened, but he didn't argue further. Maya knew she had likely lost him, but she also knew that leadership wasn't about pleasing everyone, it was about staying true to her principles. As the weeks turned into months, the impact of Maya's efforts became increasingly visible. Attendance at Club Aura continued to rise, and the clientele was more diverse than ever. The club had become a vibrant melting pot of cultures, styles, and stories, a place where people came not just to party, but to connect. More importantly, the ripple effects of Maya's initiatives were spreading throughout the city. Other club owners began reaching out to her, curious about how they could implement similar changes. Some even invited her to speak at industry conferences, where she shared her vision for a more inclusive and equitable nightlife scene. One night, as Maya sat in her office reviewing plans for an upcoming charity event, Alex knocked on her door. "Got a minute?" he asked, stepping inside. "Always," Maya replied, gesturing for him to sit. "I just wanted to say thank you," Alex said, his tone uncharacteristically serious. "Not just for what you've done for the club, but for what you've done for us. I've been in this industry for years, and I've never seen anything like this. It's inspiring." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Alex. But this isn't just me, it's all of us. It's people like you who make this possible." As Alex left, Maya leaned back in her chair, reflecting on how far they had come. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Club Aura was no longer just a nightclub. It was a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even in the face of resistance. And as Maya looked out at the city lights, she knew that their story was only just beginning. The first whispers of Maya's revolution in the nightlife industry had grown into an undeniable roar. Club Aura's success wasn't just a citywide sensation, it was attracting national attention. Journalists, bloggers, and social media influencers flocked to experience the club that had defied conventional norms and carved out a space for inclusivity and empowerment. For Maya, however, the limelight was secondary to the transformative work still underway. She knew that the fight for meaningful change was a marathon, not a sprint. The next phase of her vision was to expand the principles she had established at Club Aura across her entire chain. Each of her venues had its own unique identity, shaped by the neighborhoods they served. Maya recognized that this diversity was both a challenge and an opportunity. She began by hosting regional leadership retreats, bringing together managers from all her clubs to discuss how to adapt the core values of inclusion, respect, and accessibility to their specific locations. One such retreat took place in a historic warehouse-turned-event space in a neighboring city. The gathering was unlike any industry conference most of the attendees had experienced. Rather than sterile lectures, the agenda included immersive workshops, storytelling sessions, and even a live mural painting where participants collaborated on a visual representation of their shared mission. During one of the breakout sessions, a manager named Lucia shared a poignant story about her club's regular patrons. "We have this elderly couple who come in every Friday night," she began, her voice tinged with emotion. "They don't drink much or dance, they just sit at the bar, chatting with the staff and watching the crowd. When I ask them why they keep coming back, the wife said, because here, we feel young again. No one treats us like we don't belong." The room fell silent as Lucia's words sank in. It was a powerful reminder that the impact of Maya's initiatives extended far beyond the obvious. It wasn't just about addressing discrimination or breaking down barriers, it was about creating a space where everyone, regardless of age, background, or identity, could feel seen and celebrated. Maya listened intently, her mind racing with ideas for how to build on stories like Lucia's. She began drafting plans for a new initiative called Stories of Belonging, a campaign that would highlight the diverse experiences of patrons and staff across her clubs. The campaign would include video testimonials, photo essays, and live storytelling events, giving a platform to voices that were often overlooked in the nightlife scene. As the campaign took shape, Maya found herself grappling with the delicate balance between growth and authenticity. The demand for her clubs was skyrocketing, and investors were eager to capitalize on the momentum. One high-profile investor, a venture capitalist named Thomas Grayson, offered a substantial infusion of capital in exchange for a stake in the chain. Thomas was persuasive, painting a picture of rapid expansion and massive profits. But Maya was wary. She knew that accepting his terms could mean sacrificing some of the values she had worked so hard to uphold. During their final negotiation meeting, she laid her cards on the table. "Thomas, I appreciate your interest and your vision," she said, her tone calm but resolute. "But this isn't just a business to me. It's a mission. If partnering with you means compromising that mission, then I have to decline." Thomas leaned back in his chair, studying her with a mixture of respect and frustration. "You're playing a risky game, Maya," he said. "But I have to admit, it's admirable. If you ever change your mind, my door's open." The decision to turn down Thomas's offer wasn't easy, but it reaffirmed Maya's commitment to staying true to her principles. She began exploring alternative funding options, including crowdfunding campaigns and partnerships with community organizations. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with supporters eager to invest in a vision they believed in. Meanwhile, the Stories of Belonging campaign was generating buzz both online and offline. One story, in particular, captured the public's imagination: a young woman named Priya who had overcome immense personal struggles to become a DJ at one of Maya's clubs. In her video testimonial, Priya recounted how music had been her lifeline during a difficult period in her life. "I used to think that spaces like this weren't meant for people like me," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But Maya's club gave me a chance to share my passion and connect with people in a way I never thought possible." The video went viral, amassing millions of views and sparking a flood of messages from people who shared similar experiences. Priya's story became a rallying cry for Maya's movement, proof that inclusivity wasn't just a buzzword, it was a transformative force. As the campaign gained momentum, Maya began noticing a subtle but significant shift in the nightlife industry. Competitors who had once dismissed her efforts were now adopting similar policies, eager to replicate her success. While some saw this as a sign of progress, Maya remained cautious. She knew that true change required more than surface-level gestures, it demanded a fundamental reevaluation of values and priorities. One evening, as Maya prepared to host a panel discussion at a local university, she received an unexpected visitor. It was Jordan, the former manager whose discriminatory actions had sparked the chain of events that changed everything. "I heard about what you've been doing," Jordan said, his tone uncharacteristically humble. "And I wanted to apologize for everything. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize now how wrong I was." Maya studied him for a moment, searching for sincerity in his expression. "Apologies are a start," she said finally. "But actions speak louder than words. If you're serious about making amends, there are ways you can contribute to this work." Jordan nodded, visibly relieved. "I'd like that," he said. The encounter was a reminder of the complexities of change. How even those who resisted it could find their way back if given the chance. It also underscored Maya's belief in the power of redemption and growth. As Maya took the stage at the university later that night, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. She spoke about her journey, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned. But most importantly, she emphasized the collective nature of the work. "This isn't just about one person or one club," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "It's about all of us, coming together to create spaces where everyone can feel like they belong. It's about choosing courage over comfort, empathy over indifference, and hope over fear. And it's a journey we're all invited to join." The audience erupted into applause, their energy a testament to the impact Maya had made. As she stepped off the stage, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for how far she had come, but for the limitless possibilities that lay ahead. Maya knew the work was far from over. But as she looked out at the faces of people inspired by her vision, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The revolution she had started was no longer just hers, it belonged to everyone who believed in a better, more inclusive future. And together, they were unstoppable. As the transformation of Maya's clubs continued to reverberate throughout the nightlife industry, the movement began to take on a life of its own. It was no longer just about redefining a chain of clubs, it was about reshaping the culture of nightlife itself. The Open Doors, Open Hearts campaign had grown into a national phenomenon, inspiring discussions about inclusion and equity far beyond the confines of the industry. Maya found herself at the center of it all, a reluctant but resolute leader of a cultural shift that was breaking barriers and forging connections. The next challenge came in the form of expansion, not just geographically, but philosophically. Maya realized that the lessons learned from her journey could apply to other areas of hospitality and entertainment. She began collaborating with restaurant owners, festival organizers, and even corporate event planners, sharing insights on how to create environments that celebrated diversity and fostered belonging. At the same time, Maya was determined to maintain the personal connection that had driven her success. She made it a point to visit each of her clubs regularly, engaging with patrons and staff to ensure that the heart of her mission remained intact. During one such visit to a newly opened venue in a neighboring city, she encountered a young man named Ethan, who approached her nervously. "Ms. Patel," he began, his voice shaking slightly, "I just wanted to thank you. Your club has been a sanctuary for me. I'm autistic, and social settings have always been a struggle, but here, I feel safe. I feel like I can be myself." Maya was deeply moved by Ethan's words. She realized that the impact of her work extended to groups she hadn't initially considered, people with disabilities, mental health challenges, or other barriers to traditional social engagement. Inspired by Ethan's story, she launched a new initiative called Quiet Corners, designated areas in each of her clubs where patrons could recharge in a calm, sensory-friendly environment. The response was overwhelming, with many expressing gratitude for a feature they never knew they needed. As Maya's efforts expanded, so did her influence. She was invited to speak at international conferences, where she shared her vision for a more inclusive and empathetic hospitality industry. Her talks were a blend of storytelling, practical advice, and heartfelt appeals to embrace change. One memorable speech at a global summit ended with a standing ovation, as Maya reminded the audience, inclusion isn't a trend. It's a necessity. It's the foundation of any space that seeks to bring people together. However, with success came new challenges. Critics accused her of overcorrecting and alienating traditional patrons. A viral social media post from a disgruntled former clubgoer claimed that Maya's policies were ruining nightlife by focusing too much on social justice. The backlash was sharp, but Maya faced it head-on. In a candid interview with a major publication, she addressed the controversy. "Change is uncomfortable," she acknowledged. "But discomfort is where growth happens. My goal isn't to alienate anyone, it's to create spaces where everyone feels they have a place. If that means challenging outdated norms, so be it. Progress isn't about pleasing everyone, it's about doing what's right." Her words resonated with many, and support poured in from those who believed in her mission. The backlash, while loud, was ultimately drowned out by the voices of those who had found a home in Maya's clubs. Meanwhile, Maya's personal life was undergoing its own evolution. Her relentless focus on her work had left little time for relationships or self-care. But as the movement she had created began to stabilize, she allowed herself moments of introspection. She reconnected with old friends, spent time with her family, and even began mentoring young entrepreneurs who shared her passion for social impact. One of these mentors was a bright and ambitious woman named Layla, who dreamed of opening her own community-focused cafe. Maya saw a reflection of her younger self in Layla's determination and worked closely with her to develop a sustainable business plan. When the cafe finally opened, Maya attended the grand opening, watching with pride as Layla welcomed a diverse crowd to her new space. As the years passed, the ripple effects of Maya's work continued to grow. Her clubs became hubs for community events, cultural celebrations, and grassroots activism. She established a foundation to support underrepresented voices in the hospitality industry, offering scholarships, grants, and mentorship opportunities to aspiring entrepreneurs. The most significant milestone came when Maya was approached by a group of young activists who wanted to create a documentary about her journey. Titled Open Doors, The Maya Patel Story, the film chronicled her transformation from a silent owner to a vocal advocate for change. The documentary premiered to critical acclaim, sparking conversations about the power of individual action to drive systemic change. On the night of the premiere, Maya stood before a packed theater, reflecting on how far she had come. She thought back to that fateful evening when she had been denied entry to her own VIP area, the spark that had ignited a revolution. Now, standing on a stage surrounded by supporters, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. "This isn't just my story," she said, addressing the audience. "It's our story. It's a reminder that every one of us has the power to make a difference, no matter how daunting the odds. The path to change isn't easy, but it's worth it. And together, we can create a world where everyone belongs." As the audience erupted into applause, Maya felt a deep sense of peace. She had turned a moment of exclusion into a movement of inclusion, transforming not only her clubs but the lives of countless people who had found acceptance and empowerment within them. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time, she allowed herself to pause and appreciate the legacy she was building, a legacy rooted in courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief that change is possible.